very excited here, okay? Because we have a returning feature here. Yes, our segment for the week. I had a blast with this one last week. I don't know about you.
I love it. So, in case you guys are listening, or maybe you're new, this is, what do we call it? The
Brandomizer.
The Brandomizer. We have on this very wheel a list of fashion brands, typically high fashion. And the idea is that, there are a lot of obnoxious brands out there that are always getting the limelight. I seem to talk about Rick Owens in anything that I do on the internet.
Right.
And when was the last time I even wore Rick Owens in a video? Never. But there are brands that we don't talk about, but they're still interesting, or they're not interesting. We should say why. And they go on the Brandomizer.
Yeah, so we'll give it a spin. We'll talk about whatever brand it lands on. And then once we're done, we'll ask you guys in the audience for a new one so we can fill that slot up for next time.
Yeah.
Ready to spin?
Spin that wheel.
Spin. Here we go. She's going.
Spin the wheel.
What are we going to get? We did
L'Enfant today. Valentino.
That's a big one.
My Valentino bag. That's a meme. That's a meme.
Fire meme.
Yes. There's this person who pretends to ruin their mother's Valentino bag, and then the mother starts to scream.
And the mother sounds exactly like what's her name from White Lotus, Stifler's mom.
Oh yeah. Good
point. The voice like identical.
Very Valentino.
Yes.
So the point is, we landed on this. We got to talk about this brand that doesn't get enough limelight, get enough attention. Valentino, the heritage Italian fashion house.
So where should we start here, do you think?
I mean, I could just talk about like the first things that pop in my head. I think that if you're like a rich person in New York and you just buy a bunch of things, you probably know Valentino through their studded accessories. Valentino's well known for their studded footwear, their studded bags. This was something that they were pretty trendy with for a while.
Yep.
It's a Italian fashion house that does, runway. I'm almost certain they do have a couture line, like a legit couture.
I believe so. Yes.
A few years ago, there was one collection by Valentino that was like on all the mood boards. It was considered like the one of the hot collections. And it was the one where they had a lot of garments that were embroidered with like astrological or like the kind of like space universe designs that I think is pretty iconic. I don't know what you would Google to find it. You got Valentino. We just looked at Valentino astronomy, not astrology. Maybe that one. That one. I'm sorry. The black coat. Click that. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that was the collection I'm thinking of. There's a lot of pieces. We're looking at like a navy overcoat, a woman in a navy overcoat, and it's got like star and moon designs on it. That was a big collection. That collection was a hit, and people were definitely excited about it. But I would agree that, I don't think anybody would. There are other brands on the Brandomizer that I think people might not recognize. Like they would be like, if you're not in fashion, you just don't know it. And there are probably brands that people would be like, I don't know if it's actually good. But I think Valentino, despite it being often low key, I think it's credible. Like normal people know Valentino is an expensive Italian brand.
Yeah.
But it's been like a low key, low burner. It's not.
To me, I would say Valentino for me has consistently, like almost without fail, been like a solid B to B plus at all times, forever and always. You know what I mean?
Serious Slav is still here.
No.
Okay. I want to put up the comment Nectarine Man said, because I think it's pretty good. I feel Valentino was popping off 4 or 5 years ago during the camo and rock runners phase, and that's a great point. The rock runners were like a big hot thing, and this is like a la streetwear, kind of like the streetwear and high fashion was just happening in fashion. So people, like every high fashion brand was doing their own sneaker.
Yeah.
And I agree that the Rock Runners, that was like one of those sneakers where it was like, this is like one of the hot pieces. So I 100% agree with that. And it's kind of curious. It's like there was a bunch of stuff that Valentino was doing that seemed to be like very trendy, very much Instagram and all over social media. But I feel like they at some point they have kind of fallen off. They're not.
Yeah.
I think if you ask me right now, like what is a hot collection or item from one of the recent shows, I'm like, I don't know.
And I think, I actually think there's an interesting disconnect here within Valentino that actually reminds me quite a bit of what was going on towards the end of Alessandro Michele at Gucci. At Gucci, I always felt this disconnect of Michele's runway stuff and then like just the brand, I think with zero involvement from him really, doing like the heritage, GG, monogram, canvas, everything. You know what I mean? Like Disney collaborations, whatever. And I think Valentino has a similar thing where Pier Paolo Piccoli, right, is the designer over there. He seems like a very like couture runway minded type of designer. Very craftsmanship, materials, techniques, color stories, all that stuff that these people think about. And then there's a very product oriented side to the brand that was popping hard with anything rock stud, anything with a big V monogram, whatever,
my Valentino bag.
My Valentino bag.
Yeah.
And I think maybe the commercial stuff has dropped off a little bit. Like you're just not seeing those out in the world as much. So basically what's left is the much more highfalutin runway kind of stuff, which I think is still as good as ever. I never loved it, but I definitely never hated it. And it's just in that kind of more refined space that just doesn't get as much attention.
I think Christopher made a good comment as well. He said, Valentino is a brand I pay zero attention to, but will come across really cool pieces randomly.
Right.
I kind of feel like that's the vibe. It's like it exists as a brand that I am like not looking for, but if somebody showed me a piece for them, I'm like, that's great. Yeah, I love that.
Right,
really cool. I think that, and this is just, I guess, the story with every fashion label right now. There is probably going to come a point where maybe they stop being just kind of coasting profitability. Whatever conglomerate owns them is going to say, get me that young designer who's going to Gucci-fy, Balenciaga-fy, XX, like there's, I feel like Valentino will just be on the chopping block of a heritage brand that needs to be revitalized.
And interestingly enough,
we'll see it.
I think the new creative director for Gucci, who we've not seen anything from yet, was like the number 2, like right-hand person at Valentino. So that'll be curious to see, are they bringing anything over? Or maybe was that the more commercially minded designer at the house and Gucci just sniped them? Because obviously Gucci is very interested in just blasting out tons of very marketable product, right?
They're interested in money.
Yes.
And I don't blame them.
No.
I'm interested in money.